Hey table tennis junkies, and happy Thanksgiving. For the international junkies, Thanksgiving's a holiday we celebrate in America where we spend lots of time with family, eat a ton of food, and we really reflect on a lot of the blessings we have as Americans. 2020's been rough in a lot of ways, but I just wanted to start this tutorial by saying how thankful I am for my wife and for this little guy, baby Liam, for the support I've had in this channel, and for all the time I've been able to spend with my family, even during all the lockdowns. For this week's tutorial, as you probably saw in the title, is the windshield wiper serve with no spin on it. This serve is a little bit of an anomaly because the windshield wiper serve is generally done with a ton of spin on it, and its main use is to kind of mess up and confuse your opponent with all of that spin. But because the windshield wiper is generally done with all the spin on it, when you mix in the no spin version of it, it can mess up your opponent because of that difference in the spins, and you'll get a much cleaner third ball for the attack. So let's get started. For the grip on the windshield wiper serve, I always recommend the Seemiller grip. To do that, you just rotate the racket in your hand a little bit this way, and your index finger can be on the side there a little bit. What this will do is it'll help you to generate much better side spin on your serve. But with this particular serve, you're probably not trying to get a whole lot of side spin. If you want to get some, that's fine, but not too much. But you really want to have the same grip for your spinny serves and your no spin serve, because it'll help you to disguise the serves much better and to coordinate between the two. For the stance on the windshield wiper serve, my right leg is a little behind my left, and my feet are more pointing away from the table this way, but my torso is kind of turned towards the table. So as I do this serve, I'm gonna be stepping back and really crouching down and getting low on the serve. This will help to keep the ball low, and it'll also help me get my body involved for when I want to generate the spin and to disguise the no spin with the spinny serve. Let's go over the stroke for this serve. The way that I like to think about the no spin windshield wiper serve is very similar to the way that I think about my fast serves, where on the fast serves I'm trying to make my opponent think that it's going to be short, and then I kind of whip them out and do a fast one. With the windshield wiper serve, I'm trying to get my opponents to think that there's a ton of spin on it, when in reality there's nothing going on, there's no spin on it. As you do the stroke on this serve, you can start it kind of more away from the ball and away from your body, or kind of more directly behind the ball. If you start further away from your body, it'll generate some side spin. If you start more behind the ball, it'll be more of a cleaner, straighter ball. When I'm doing the serve, I generally do it more from away from my body, just because it disguises better with the backspin, and the stroke is very similar to the backspin. So it's going to look something like this, where you're going to be starting either back here or back here, and just kind of coming through and kind of underneath it as you crouch down like this. Or maybe a little further away from your body, kind of like this. The key difference between the backspin windshield wiper serve and the no spin windshield wiper serve is that on the no spin, there's no real action as you're impacting the ball. So remember that if you want to put spin on a shot, you need to have friction between the rubber and the ball. So when you're doing this serve, you don't really want to have a whole lot of wrist motion, or you don't want to be brushing the ball too much, because that's going to generate the unwanted spin. So when you're coming in, you're just going to be coming in real light and not really doing anything with the wrist or with the brushing of the ball. You're just going to come in nice and easy and gently, and that way the ball will stay cleaner and without any spin on it. A technique that I like to use whenever I'm doing a no spin serve is I like to hit the bottom of the ball. And what that's going to do is it's going to generate a very light backspin, as long as I'm not using any wrist and I'm not really brushing it very much. That's going to generate a very light backspin. And what's going to happen is the ball bounces forward. That backspin actually turns into a no spin. And if I were to just hit a flat no spin, a true no spin ball, that same bounding forward is actually going to turn into a top spin by the time it gets to my opponent. So when I'm doing a no spin serve, I really want the ball to be no spin when my opponent hits it. I don't want it to be no spin when I hit it. I want it to be no spin when my opponent hits it. So I hit the bottom of the ball this way or this way. That way it generates a very light backspin and turns into a no spin. Here's a serve from behind so you can really see my stroke. Watch how my wrist is laid back so that it'll generate just a very light backspin. That way by the time it gets to my opponent, it'll be a no spin ball. Notice how lightly I'm hitting the ball here. There's really no wrist motion in this stroke. I'm coming more from the side on this one, so there'll be a little bit of light side spin, but there's really no spin as far as top spin or back spin. On this one, I'm approaching it more from behind, and that way it'll be less side spin and still no backspin or topspin. Here's the same serve with the wrist motion. You can see how I'm really whipping that wrist to generate the side spin and the backspin. And here it is again without that wrist action. All right, here's the serve, so you can see it from that angle where I'll start more kind of away from my body so you can kind of see it with that side spin. Still not really any topspin or backspin, so it's more of like a dead ball that way with just a little bit of side spin on it. Here's an example of the same serve where I'm kind of just going more straight on instead of from the side. There's less side spin on this version. And I'm kind of just going through the ball more. You can see that it still curves a little bit, but it's much straighter on that one. Let's talk about the third ball attack after this serve. So the windshield wiper serve generally has a lot of spin on it and it's tough to read, and most opponents are pretty careful on the returns. So even though this serve doesn't have any spin on it, I'm still anticipating a pretty passive return from my opponent, and I like to stay close to the table for the third ball attack. Sometimes I'll see my opponents misread this serve as a backspin and they'll come in and push it, and the ball kind of sits up for a high third ball attack. But be careful on this one. Make sure that you account for the backspin that your opponent's putting on the ball and you're not just hitting through it, because a lot of times that ball kind of sits out in front and it can be hard to lift it. So make sure you pay attention to that and don't hit that one in the net if it pops up. When someone does this serve to me, my return will depend on a few things. So the first is my confidence level on reading the spin. So again, this serve is tough to read. So if I see that it's no spin and I'm confident that it's no spin, then it'll depend on the height. So if the ball sits up, then I want to get close to the ball and I'll probably do something more aggressive with a topspin. And if it's low, then I'll probably step in and do a drop shot, or I'll come in and I'll do an aggressive push. Let's recap on a few of the main tips from this tutorial. The first is you want to hit this ball very light. You don't want to be whipping through it and brushing the ball, because if you do, you're going to generate the spin that you don't really want on this serve. This serve is really just a no spin serve that is meant to be a no spin and meant to be different than the spinny version of it, because you can get a lot of spin with this serve, and if you can just float it in with no spin, that difference in spin can make a big difference. The next step is to make sure you keep the ball low and short. Remember that when you're doing a no spin serve, the height of the serve matters much more than when you're doing a spinny serve. For instance, if you're doing a no spin serve and it's double bouncing on your opponent's side of the table, but the ball is high, your opponent is going to have a nice easy ball that's close to the net and they don't have to worry about any spin, so it's really easy to just come in and just pound that ball. Where if you had a lot of spin on the ball, obviously you still don't want it to be a high serve, but it's much harder to do anything with it if you have a lot of spin on it. So if you're doing a no spin serve, it's really important that you just keep it low and short. My next step is to use the Seemiller grip, where it just rotates in your hand. This will help you to disguise the serve, and it'll also help you to keep it low and short. The last tip in the recap is that it helps to generate just that little bit of backspin, because the ball will kind of bound forward and turn into a no spin, where if you serve no spin right from the serve, then that no spin will kind of bound forward and turn into a little topspin, and it'll be easier for your opponent to be aggressive on that one. So when I'm doing a no spin serve, I'm usually just putting a very light amount of backspin on it. That's all for this week's video. Remember that if you have any questions or serve requests, you can put them in the comments right below the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.